Welcome, everyone, to the Inclusion Podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Kostman.
And I'm Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzak. We're so glad you're here as we explore all things inclusion.
So whether you're a school leader, an educator, a parent, or simply passionate about inclusion, this podcast is for you.
In each episode, we go beyond the usual conversations, diving into what truly makes inclusive education work.
Together, let's make a difference, one conversation at a time. Here we go. Episode 71 is all about praise. And it's not what you think it's about. It's about reducing praise in order to get more learning. And today's topic is 7 reasons to shift towards intrinsic motivation and away from praise. So I kid you not, we could walk into any classroom and I could just take data on the amount of praise that's being dished out, and it seems awesome. Good job. I love how you're sitting. Nice work. Great job, class. Let's keep going. Wow, I love how you did that, right? And I'm like, this place feels good. And it comes from a really good place. But today we want to talk about why not everything needs praise and how consistent or constant praise can actually get in the way of learning, autonomy, and motivation.
Yeah, and I think, there's other podcasts of ours that I'll link to in the show notes, Julie, because I think people get confused about what praise is. You just, gave a bunch of ones, and they're like, and then we get these yeah buts or these what if scenarios from people like, well, what if I give it this way? Or what if I say this? Or what if I, and so if you don't mind, friends, today we're not going to talk about how to give good praise or less generic and more specific praise. That's another podcast that we have. And in our Behavior 360, we go into a great deal about praise, rewards, and punishment.
Yeah.
In fact, we've done a whole webinar on it and blah, blah, blah. Okay. But we just want to talk for a minute about the problem with praise in general. Now, does this mean that we shouldn't acknowledge or be positive? No. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I did check that, Julie, when we were in Colorado, and it doesn't have history of, bad undertones of that phrase, I don't believe. So I think it's okay to say throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it still might be a microaggression. But anyway, you get the idea, friends. We don't want to go into the binary. We don't want to be like, oh, Julie and Christy said we can never praise, right? We're just talking the problem with how abundant praise can become and some of the other side of the coin, if you will.
Yeah. And this work, for me, came to me when I read an article by Alfie Cohen, and it was something like, why to avoid good job or how to avoid good job. And the part that I most resonated with was that we've got to reduce praise for lots of reasons. And so today's episode is just going to focus on the reasons that we need to reduce praise. So I'm going to start with this idea that praise shifts the focus from learning to approval. So praise shifts the focus from learning to approval, meaning when I do something, I now look outside of me to somebody who's in power for their approval to be like, was that good? Did I do it right? Are you happy with me? And it becomes about adult reaction and not how is this sitting for me internally, or am I learning this, or is this making me more curious or more excited? It becomes a performance for someone's approval.
And I think it becomes so ingrained that we don't even recognize it across our lifespan about where our motivation is coming from, or why we feel a lack of motivation, or what to do when we don't feel motivated. Like we aren't building those strategies about how to notice that, well, maybe I'm unmotivated, quote unquote, because I'm depleted, or maybe it's because this really isn't a healthy choice. Like we don't even listen to that inner wise self, as you would say. But back to like beyond just development and our emotional intelligence and our self-regulation, if we want learning as an outcome,
Hmm.
we're making this argument, right, Julie, that less praise, more learning. So why is that, or how does that happen?
Yeah. So besides sort of praise shifting the focus to approval, another thing that happens is praise creates performance instead of engagement. And so what the learner learns is it's what I do with my body, my face, my hands, etc., to prove that I'm doing the right thing as opposed to actually engaging. And this is especially true for students with disabilities. And so, what we know to be true is students with disabilities, especially those that are supported by adults, maybe as a paraprofessional is assigned to them, they have a lot more supervision or surveillance. And
Surveillance.
yeah, and what we learn is that we're creating compliant humans as opposed to humans that are excited to be learning because somebody's always judging their performance.
Yeah, so I don't I wanted to say back when you talked about Alfie Cohen, Julie,
Hmm.
that this is a hot topic and it has been by many different authors and thinkers. And so I'll put in the
Hmm.
show notes the article that Julie referred to. Though Alfie can be a little bit polarizing, and there are times where their comments are off the mark in my mind too.
Hmm.
But keep in mind, friends, that and the download for this episode will help that at inclusiveschooling.com/, download 71. We're not we're not saying that we should avoid connecting with the student or
Mm-mm.
giving feedback to the student, or that anything external is bad. Like, don't take it all that way. Notice what Julie's talking about, that where it's shifting things, how it's kind of maybe warping, that our intention started off in one direction, but
Hmm.
the impact, which is the thing we need to be accountable for, brought us in another direction. So the idea of limiting or reducing praise for me, Julie, is like that making room for
Mm.
that. I still have a job to do as a teacher or as the adult or the one with the prefrontal cortex. I
Hmm.
want to now notice more, describe more, listen more, and absolutely trust the students' internal world and have them pay more attention to that internal world. That's how we get self regulation.
Yes. Yes. So, Christy, you mentioned noticing. So, you could say something like, you worked on that longer than yesterday.
Yeah.
You could describe, you said describing, and you could say something like, wow. Maybe you wouldn't even say wow. So, let me go back. You could
It's
say,
okay.
you tried two different strategies. My favorite that you said is reflection. So, you're inviting reflection. So, you would ask a question. How did that feel to you? And what you just said, Christy, is you're inviting their inner world to the discussion because now you care how did it actually feel to the student, not what was my outside perspective of that activity or that thing that they did.
And, Julie, that made me think. I was just talking to a friend last night that had a difficult interaction. And of course, I want to give all this advice and I want to fix it and I want to tell them my perception of it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
instead of asking, how do you feel? I'm like, you probably feel really frustrated and a little bit mad and a little bit. And the person was like, I just feel confused. I was like,
Uh,
oh, and I could have invited, it's not quite replacing praise in that sense, but
mm-hmm.
it's honing that skill in me of
Mm-hmm.
inviting reflection. This is another place in my teaching that I can invite those behaviors of noticing and describing and inviting reflection versus my go-to of praising or telling or saying what I think.
That's right. I mean, I would say this does not come naturally to most
No.
educators. And praise, we've learned this is why I think this topic is so important. We've learned that praise is the end all be all and what it actually, and that it's going to improve their self-concept, and it's going to make them feel good about themselves. It's going to do all these beautiful things. Now, there are just mixed ideas about that. What I know to be true is if you're inviting a student to reflect on their own experiences, anytime you're saying, instead of like, it's snack time, everybody sit, eat, you say, check in with yourself. Are you feeling hungry?
Oh my
Does
gosh.
does a snack sound good? If not, there's going to be another snack time later. Don't worry, right? Do you see the difference? Like, oh, my internal system matters. The clock doesn't matter more than that. And so, this, anytime you fall back to inviting reflection, you're doing this thing called building brains that actually go internally first, which helps every human learn how to regulate themselves.
There's so many things I want to go off on a tangent about snack, which I won't.
Okay.
But I really think as we apply this to our students with disabilities, and I'll say students with, I will say, let's just take verbal expression and let's just find a range of verbal expression from someone like me who's a verbal processor in English.
Yeah.
And then take it all the way down to someone who types to communicate, which is a different mode and can't be at the same pace because it's just impossible. Even as you become fast at typing, it's just a different speed, right?
Pace. Yep.
And then let's take whether or not English is your language. Let's take whether it's your preference, take it whether it's your comfort, take all that, right? That whole range.
Yeah.
If we're always praising, especially praising students for verbal output or quick responses or things that look compliant or things that look like correct, that's all those signals I'm giving, then anyone else in that range is wrong or off or failing at some level, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
even
right.
though I'm praising, I'm indirectly sending a message or directly sending a message to others on that range that they're wrong.
Yes. And that is picked up in subtle and not subtle ways all day long by learners. And I think can be some of the most ostracizing and marginalizing things is that there's a system that I'm not good at, that some people are getting praised for, that I will never be praised for. And you start to feel as if, this place or space isn't for you and you don't belong in this place or space. And so we've got to rethink praise. And I know it's confusing and I know it's upsetting. And I know anytime that you say good job today or tomorrow, you're going to think, oh no, is that the wrong thing to do? It's like, let's complicate this. Let's look into it. Let's see what praise is actually doing. And if a student needs praise to keep going, that probably means the task needs rethinking. So some people are like, they need it to keep going. And it's like, well, let's just change the task so that they can be more independent or more supported. And so we just want to end today reminding you all that not everything needs praise. And people don't need anyone else to narrate their worth or their score or their behavior. And what kids need is an opportunity to trust themselves and to learn to perform without any approval. And so when we reduce praise, we make room, like you said, Christy, for something better, which is motivation, dignity, and real learning. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and catch up on past episodes where we share valuable insights, straight talk, and practical steps to challenge outdated special education practices. You can find every episode with the show notes at inclusiveschooling.com/inclusion-podcast to build more inclusive schools together.